I want to introduce you guys to something called the periodic table. If you look at these two balloons, they look exactly identical, right? But inside they contain two different elements. One has oxygen and one has helium in it. You can't tell the difference from the outside because it looks the same, but it's two different types of gases that we can't see with our eyes. And as you guys all know, what happens if you let go of a balloon that has oxygen in it? It just sinks to the ground, right? However, if you let go of a balloon that has helium in it, it goes up because it's completely different what's inside the balloon and it interacts differently with the world. So that is what the periodic table is all about. It is something that you guys will get to learn a lot about as you get older, especially into high school. But it explains how the pieces of this world are put together. So our world pretty much, well, anything that you can touch, you can feel, if you can drop it on your foot, it consists of elements that have been put together to create that object or that thing. So you can imagine it like a bunch of Legos, right? You might have some oxygen, you might have some nitrogen, you might have some metals, you might have all these different types of elements. Depending on how you put them together, you're going to create or you're going to have a different object, a different thing in this world. So these elements, here's an example, okay? If you take oxygen, okay, and you put it together with nitrogen, then you're going to get the air that we breathe. It has a few other gases in there as well, but oxygen combined with mostly nitrogen is going to give you air, okay? Whereas if you put the same oxygen and combine it with silicon, which is a completely different element on the periodic table, then you get the Earth's crust, like the soil and the rocks and the things that we touch and feel outside on the ground. The top layer of our Earth is made of mostly oxygen with a lot of silicon and a few other things. But these two combined make something totally different than these two combined, right? If you put oxygen and hydrogen together, you guys probably know what this one is, you get water, right? But if you take oxygen and hydrogen that make water and then add in some carbon, which is another element, another Lego that we build with, you end up with something totally different, which is actually sugar. Not water, but sugar. So how you put those elements together create the different things in our world. So the periodic table can be very overwhelming. If you haven't already printed it out, you can do that now. This is a colored chart of the periodic table. It's got all kinds of numbers and abbreviations and words and all kinds of things that when I first looked at it, and even now when I look at it, I just get very overwhelmed because it's very confusing when you first look at it. However, this chart is very well organized. Everything is put in a certain place for a reason, to point out like which things are gases, which things are metals, which things are not metals, which things are solids, how they interact with each other. So they're all organized on here in a very specific way, to help us understand how God has built the world that we live in. So what I want you guys to do is take on a challenge. I have attached to this video some games. I also have a clue hunt, scavenger hunt. I also have a blank periodic table that you guys can use just to start to get comfortable with the elements on here with the game, if you'd like to combine the two. So I've got a clue hunt for you guys to do where you solve the riddles to find elements in your house, well, objects in your house that contain certain elements. So you can go and look for the items and then pull them all together. There's a sheet that you can fill out to answer the clues. To take on some extra challenges of identifying whether or not it's a metal or a non-metal or the different where it is on the chart. So you can take on whatever challenges you want and then see if you can post a picture of all your objects that you've collected around your house that are all different examples of different elements on our periodic table. So I hope that's fun for you guys, and just to realize like everything that we see, everything that we touch, everything in our world is built from the things that are right here on this periodic table. So as overwhelming as it is, it's a very small little chart that everything in this world is built upon. So before you guys go, I forgot to make a very important connection between Marie Curie and the periodic table. So back when we were talking and reading the book, it said in there that she had discovered two things called radium and polonium. So guess what, guys? Those two things are elements on our periodic table, which is why she is so important, because she helped discover two of the building blocks of our world that can be found right here. So I have a really cool book that you guys might be interested in, those of you who enjoy science a whole lot. It's called The Elements Book, and it contains each and every one of these elements that we talked about on the periodic table, and tells us a lot about them. There is a kids version of this coming out in the fall that also might be very interesting to look into, and just kind of breaks down and explains how it's used and how it's a part of our world today. There is one very cool metal that I thought I would point out to you guys, if I can find it. I just lost my page. It is called gallium, and I just found this, I just saw it the other day on Dude Perfect, and they were showing it in there, and it literally turns to liquid in your hand because of your body temperature. It melts at a very low temperature, and so it turns into liquid, and then when you put it back on the table, it would turn back into a solid, which is really cool. So there's all kinds of fascinating things that you can learn about that are all on the periodic table. So have fun, enjoy learning about this world that God has created.